So some good Pitt basketball news to end the week last week, and we're going to talk about it here to start the week this week. Jaland Lowe coming back to Pitt. Not that there was ever any doubt, although in 2024 or 2023 or 2022, when we're talking about college sports, there's doubt about everybody. You never really know who's going to come back. You never know who's going to stay, who's going to go, who might go and then they decide to stay, who might stay and then they decide to go. It's always up in the air with everyone, so you're kind of waiting on an announcement from everyone. Takes a little while to work through the football roster, but you can get through basketball a bit quicker, so only a handful of guys that we'll have to hear from. Jaland Lowe is a big one, though, and getting him to return, particularly in light of Bub Carrington's departure for the NBA, that's huge for Pitt heading into next season. There's a handful of key pieces they need to bring back, and Lowe is right there at the top of the list. So let's talk about what Pitt gets back with Jaland Lowe, what it means for the Panthers that Jaland Lowe is returning, and how that roster is coming together, what the Panthers are going to need to fill around Jaland Lowe as they build for the 2024-2025 season. To get your week started here on the Morning Pitt on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, it's Monday here at the start of the week on the Morning Pitt on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I'm Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com. The website right there below, you see it. Don't click that. That's not a link, but you can type those words into your search bar and check out the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. It's the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, and recruiting. You find it all at Panther-Lair.com and message boards that interact with hundreds and thousands of other Pitt fans. All day, every day. Pitt fans are hanging out on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com talking about Pitt sports. If you're a Pitt fan, you like watching Pitt sports, and you like talking about Pitt sports. And sometimes you probably like the latter more than the former. I mean, let's be honest, with everything you've seen from Pitt over the years and the decades and the centuries, you probably like talking about it sometimes more than you like watching it. Well, the place to talk about it is on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com. I think it's the best online community of Pitt fans you're going to find. Literally 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, Pitt fans are on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com talking about Pitt sports. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. And our YouTube channel right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. It's where we put all of our Pitt video content, whether it's these daily Morning Pitt videos. We do this every day of the week, Monday through Friday, a little bit of Pitt sports talk to get your day started. Our weekly live show that we do every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. Me and Jim Hammett get together with you to talk Pitt sports for an hour. And we literally do get together with you. Like Jim and I are talking, but you guys are in the chat screen over there, and you put all your comments and your questions, and we have a little back and forth. And sometimes you guys ask great questions and make great comments, and sometimes you don't. But either way, we read them and we talk about it, and it's fun. It's almost like a call-in show, kind of, except we don't get to hear your voice. But we can do impressions. I always offer this, but nobody ever takes us up on it. We can do impressions of what we think your voice sounds like, or what you want your voice to sound like. Nobody ever takes us up on that, though. If you want, you can, though. We can certainly work something out for that. But either way, it's fun. We have a good time. Same kind of format that we do for our post-game shows when there are games to do a post-game show after. We do those during the football season, the basketball season. And we do them all right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So make sure you like this video, first of all, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I mean, we're like less than 40 away from hitting 4,000. I'd love to get to that number by the end of April. I've been saying this for the last week because it's early in April. We're giving ourselves a lot of time. But if you're watching this video and you're not subscribed, click the subscribe button. It's right down there. I made it nice and easy for you. And then you can be one of the growing 4,000. We'd love to have you be part of it. So do that right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. All right. Of course, last Friday we had our mailbag edition of the Morning Pitt. If you want to be part of the mailbag, you can do that on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com. We'll put out the call for questions probably tomorrow. We had a couple questions left over. We'll get to those to start this week's mailbag, and then we will take additional questions beyond those. But so we had the mailbag on Friday, kind of got that thing put together, to be honest, taped it a little bit early on Thursday. And then the Jaland Lowe news came out later in the day on Thursday, I think Thursday afternoon. He had a tweet that he's coming back, or maybe Alliance 412 put out a tweet that he's coming back. And then Pitt Basketball tweeted a graphic that Jaland Lowe was coming back. And, let's say you took a really long nap starting in like 2018, all right, or 2019. Let's say And this is funny because I just saw something about this on Twitter. Let's say on April 6th, 2019, you went into a coma. Or you took a really long nap. You just woke up yesterday or on Saturday. You woke up Saturday, April 6th, 2024. And you, for exactly 5 years, you had no knowledge of what was happening whatsoever. The first thing you would probably say is, the heck did they do to the uniforms? They had the perfect uniform with those retro looks. Why did they change it? Because actually April 7th, 2019 was the day that they unveiled the new uniforms, which were the updated look with the retro colors and the cathedral font, where they took a perfect thing and made it less perfect, which, to be fair, I mean, people don't want perfection. They want things with blemishes and flaws and imperfections that they can pick on, right? And that was the problem with Pitt's retro uniforms that they wore in 2016 and 17 and 18, is they were perfect. They were without flaw. And so you can't have that. You can't have absolute perfection. So you just woke up from your coma of 5 years and you say, well, first of all, what the heck did they do to the uniforms? Why do the numbers look like that? And the second thing you would say is, why is a guy announcing that he's returning? Why wouldn't he return? I don't get it. And this is something that's sort of uniquely a product of our current times. It's uniquely a product of 2024 and 23 to some extent, because we saw it a lot in the football offseason. Guys announcing their return without any real, sort of tangible public acknowledgement of the fact that they were even possibly leaving in the first place. It's like, I've decided to return, as opposed to what? Now, of course, we all know the reality of the situation, that all of these guys, certainly we saw it a lot on the football side, and it's the case in basketball as well, and it was the case in basketball last offseason. A lot of these guys have options to go elsewhere. A lot of these guys have NIL opportunities where they can go into the transfer portal and they can get a decent chunk of change. And it's a battle that Pitt is fighting. It's a battle that Alliance 412, Pitt's NIL collective, is fighting. And it's a battle that collectives across the country are fighting. They're fighting for player retention. And as much as we have all talked about NIL as a means of player acquisition, as a means of going into the transfer portal and bringing in those players who will elevate your program, there's a huge retention component as well. And to a large extent, certainly on the football side more than the basketball side, but basketball as well, retention is just as big, if not bigger, than the acquisition side. You've got to be able to bring your players back. The good players you have who led you to whatever success you experienced this previous season, you need them back on the roster next year. And when the player in question is a surprise stud freshman guard who looks like he's really good at facilitating for his teammates and creating his own shot, yeah, you're going to have some real competition when it comes to bringing that guy back. And the fact that Jaland Lowe returned is a win. Just like when Kenny Johnson and Gavin Bartholomew and Rodney Hammond and Deion Hayes announced, and Branson Taylor and Ryan Baer and Solomon DeShields, and those guys all announced that they were excited to come back for another year at Pitt. Yeah, they had a real decision to make. And the decision they made is that they were going to Pitt. Now, DeAndre Jules didn't make that decision. Sam Lola didn't make that decision at Pitt. For the basketball program, Federico didn't make that decision. And it's a unique situation, maybe a little bit different. Will Jeffers, a little bit different from what we're talking about with maybe what Jaland Lowe was experiencing or the opportunities that Jaland Lowe had presented to him. But when it comes down to it, these guys do have real opportunities to go. And you say, well, they're not in the transfer portal. How could they possibly be hearing from any coaches? Word gets around. Communication is made. The message gets sent. Hey, if you come here, if you go into the portal and you come to this school, you're going to get X amount. Now, we've talked plenty, and we're going to get back to Jaland Lowe here in a second and the impact on the Pitt basketball program because it's relevant, but I think it's also, or not just relevant, that's the whole point of what we're talking about today, but I think it's relevant to understand the landscape of the situation. And I think it's relevant to reset the context so everybody really clearly understands what this is. I did a Morning Pitt episode probably in December about how, people say, oh, you're saying the quiet part out loud. There's no quiet part anymore when it comes to this. You might as well just call it what it is because it is what it is. It is pay for play. And this is a free agent market. Now, it's a free agent market without any kind of transparency. So when player X goes to his current coach or his current school's NIL collective and says, look, I'm hearing that if I go into the portal, I could get $500,000 from Texas A&M. Well, okay. Now the negotiations are on. And it's really what it is. And it may not even be that player saying it to his coach. It may be a player's representative saying it to the NIL collective, which is a representative. It's never really breaking the rules, as if there are any rules or as if they even matter. But it's never really breaking the rules, but it's all happening in pretty much the way you believe it is. And then it's up to the collective and whoever else to try to find a number that'll convince that player to stay. A lot of players are willing to take that hometown discount. I think that's happened at Pitt a number of times on the football and basketball sides. And I think that's a testament to the coaches and the culture they've built and the relationships they have. Jeff Capel was a big draw for Bub Carrington to come to Pitt. Jeff Capel was a big draw for Jaland Lowe to come to Pitt. And when it came to those guys making decisions about what they were going to do for next season, Jeff Capel was a big factor in both. Ultimately, Bub Carrington decided on the NBA, which is a little bit of a different situation than what we're talking about here. Jaland Lowe deciding to come back to Pitt, a lot of it has to do with Jeff Capel. Now, that doesn't mean Alliance 412 wasn't competitive in its efforts to, keep Jaland Lowe, to retain Jaland Lowe, but Jeff Capel had a lot to do with it as well. So we understand all of that. We understand that's why you got to make the announcement that you're coming back, because people have questions. Is he coming back? Well, Jaland Lowe is coming back. And we've expected this, I think we talked about it on the message board a week or two ago, that our expectation was that Jaland Lowe and Ishmael Leggett would return. We're still waiting to see Leggett's announcement. I think that will come. Then I had a pretty lengthy episode last week about Alliance 412 and the collective and the NIL situation and how it's not really a finish line, we talked about all that. I don't want to cover ground that we've covered already too much. I mean, some of this is repeating old ground because it's the same story over and over again, but I don't want to go too far down that path. So Jaland Lowe is coming back. And what does that mean for Pitt? I think everyone would agree it's huge, right? I mean, the ideal situation would have been getting Lowe, Bub Carrington, and Ishmael Leggett all to return for 2024-25. And I legitimately think if you had those three back, and you added a quality big, just one, they're a preseason top 25 team and probably preseason top 4 in the ACC. As well they should be, because they'd have one of the best backcourts in the conference. But they lost Bub Carrington, and that's a big loss. I'm not one who would go so far as to say Jaland Lowe is better than Bub Carrington. I'm not sure I'm there yet. There were games when Jaland Lowe was better than Bub Carrington, but on the whole, I think the total package of Bub Carrington was better. I think that there was more he could do. I think he was a good facilitator. I think he was a good shooter. I think he could have continued to add to his game. There were some things that Lowe did better than Carrington. Like I say, I think there were games where Lowe was better than Carrington. But even if Carrington's better, and we could probably debate that and have that discussion separately, there's still no doubt that Lowe had an outstanding freshman season. It just took, 14 games to get there. And there are a few factors that I think went into that. I think that, I think there was talk that maybe he was a little banged up to start the season, that maybe he was dealing with a little bit of an injury. But he didn't move into the starting lineup until Ishmael Leggett was dealing with an injury. It was Bub Carrington, Ishmael Leggett, and Zach Austin starting along with Blake Hinson and Federico. And when Leggett got hurt, Lowe moved into the starting lineup for the game at Louisville. With Jaland Lowe in the starting lineup, Pitt was 13-6, which I actually was a little bit surprised about. I mean, that's not a great record. It's like a 68% win percentage. Not that special. However, that 13-6 was all against the ACC, which is notable because in the games, they played 7 games against power conference opponents before Lowe stepped into the starting lineup. And in those 7 games, which included Florida, Oregon State, Missouri, Clemson, West Virginia, Syracuse and Carolina, I think. That might have been 7. Did I just count off 7? But they were 2-5 in those games. So the first 7 games they played against power conference opponents, Pitt was 2-5. After Jaland Lowe moved into the starting lineup for the final 19 games against power conference opponents, all ACC games, but still, The Panthers were 13-6. That's an improvement. In those 19 games, Jaland Lowe averaged 13.1 points per game, 3.6 rebounds per game, 4.1 assists per game, 1.2 steals per game, 40.8% shooting from the field, 40.3% shooting from three-point range, and 86.4% shooting from the free throw line, all in the final 19 games in which he was a starter. And, what we'll do sometimes with stats like that, and you can do this on sportsreference.com, I think is the name of the site. It's pretty easy, college sports reference or whatever it is. You can go to the game log and you can pick one game and another game and get a range and get a stat line for that range. It's great. I do this all the time. Those numbers I just read to you, I didn't do all that math myself. I just picked the range of those 19 games and let collegesportsreference.com. I think that's what the name of the website is. I look at it constantly. I should know the name of the website off the top of my head, but they'll give you that range. Now, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll try and narrow the range and find like a smaller subset of games. Yes, and then that's what he averaged over those 19 games, but that included this game and that game, the first Duke game and the second Syracuse game. With the game at Duke, from then on, he averaged, or after they lost at Miami, from after that, he averaged, or, here's like a 6-game stretch where he was just on fire. During that stretch, he averaged this. You like to highlight these smaller subsets of stats because usually you can get like a really impressive, wow, look at what he did over that. He was on a tear. But what's wild with Lowe is when you look at the 19 games when he was a starter, you can pick, and I tried a bunch of different ranges, and the stats end up being about the same every time. Final 6 games of the season, the Duke game on, the Miami game on, this game, that game, this little range. He had a stretch where he had like 6 games in a row where he scored in double figures. And one of the games he had 10 assists. He hit a double-double actually against Florida State. He had 17 and 10, 17 points and 10 assists. And he had 9 assists the game before. So I looked at, and it was in this run of like 6 games where he scored double figures every game. I look at that range. I'm like, all right, check this out. Every single range, including that one, his numbers are all right around the same. 13 points per game, 3.5 rebounds per game, 4 assists per game. He was remarkably consistent. Now, I mean, not every game was exactly the same. He had, 19 starts, 15 of those games he scored in double digits. He only, he had 2 20-point games. He had the double-digit game, or the double-double game, I should say. He had 7 games where he had 5 or more assists. So, there was range, peaking with some of those 20-point games. He had 4 games where he didn't score in double figures. It wasn't all exactly the same performance, but it pretty much averaged out just about any range of games you looked at. It pretty much averaged out to right around this same consistent level of production. And it's pretty remarkable, I think, at how steady he was. And maybe that's the thing that stands out. I mean, it's not the thing that stands out to me the most. I'll tell you the thing that stands out to me the most. There were a few. But it's one of the things that stand out to me the most is how steady he was when he moved into the starting lineup as a freshman. Granted, it was, 14 games in the season. Game number 15 was when he made his first start. And so he wasn't totally new to the game. He had been playing a lot. But he stepped into the starting lineup and pretty much instantly took control of the team, was leading the team, was able to play with Bub Carrington and facilitate for him, facilitate for Leggett, facilitate for Hinson, even try to facilitate for Federico. And he was able to get that feel of how to drive, when to drive. It was remarkable, and this is the thing that probably I enjoyed the most about Jaland Lowe, was his ability to stand at the top of the key and almost instantly detect when his defender gave him a window to drive. I mean, it was like, boom. And it was quicker than that snap that I just did. Because as soon as he saw the tiniest bit of daylight, and it could be Kyle Filipowski, it could be a guard, it didn't matter who it was. He saw that tiniest bit of daylight, and he was gone to the hoop. And it was remarkable how quick he was. It was remarkable how perceptive he was. He was able to use that left hand, and maybe that caught some guys off guard. It was remarkable how well he executed. Something that he probably did a lot in high school. But to take it to this level and make those reads at this level and react at this level and have that confidence at this level, really, really exciting stuff. And I think, you know, with him coming back now, it's huge for building this team next year, because you have a leader. I mean, this will be Jaland Lowe's team next year. You know, beyond a shadow of a doubt. I know Ishmael Leggett's 2 years older than him, or 2 classes older than him. You know, Zach Austin's older. The Twins are older. They'll bring in a transfer guard and some transfer forwards. All those guys will be older, but it'll be Jaland Lowe's team. And what do they need? I mean, I think there are a few things they're going to need in order to fill out around Lowe, and assuming he comes back, as we believe he will, Ishmael Leggett, and assuming he comes back as we believe he will, Zach Austin, and anybody else. You know, I think they're slated to have 3 open spots, and I think they'll be right around that number. I don't know if they have anybody else who's going to go, but always can be a surprise, I guess, right? All right, we will definitely be talking this week about the parts that they need to add, the pieces they need to add, the pieces they're going to add around Jaland Lowe and the rest of this team going forward. They'll need some key parts, or some key players, I should say, out of the transfer portal. Right now it's a recruiting dead period. Nobody can visit until after, I forget when it starts again, maybe the 12th, later this week. They go into a little dead period during the Final Four, and so nobody can take any visits or anything like that, but they'll jump right back into it as soon as they can, and I think they have some key players that they need to add to build around Lowe and the foundation that they have coming back from this past season's team. So we'll be talking this week about what they need to add, who would be ideal candidates to fill those spots, and everything else going on in the world of Pitt sports. It's never a quiet time. There's never a boring time. There's always something going on. Players transferring, players not transferring, spring practice as they enter the final week. They've got 2 practices this week, and then the Blue Gold game on Saturday. We'll have lots of coverage of all of that. So yeah, there's a lot going on. You don't want to miss any of it, so make sure you check out the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. It's a place to get all of your Pitt sports coverage and talk to other Pitt fans all day, every day. And then, of course, our YouTube channel right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Like this video and subscribe so you don't miss any of our Pitt video content. We'd appreciate that for sure. All right, lots of coverage from spring camp tomorrow. We'll have another Morning Pitt tomorrow morning. And in the meantime, we'll have lots of coverage of Pitt football, basketball, and recruiting all day today at Panther-Lair.com. So tune in for that. Check that out. And, enjoy your Monday. It's first day of the week, but you'll make it. Enjoy the eclipse. See as much of it as you can. And we'll catch up with you tomorrow for the Morning Pitt right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.